Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to QallOut. We will be debating the United States being a superpower. I'm doing the pro side, and my opponent here is doing the con side. Go ahead. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, no, I think so. You should go ahead because it's your debate. So I think you should go ahead first, and I will answer the question.
Okay, that's fair. So, United States is going to remain a superpower for a while. According to Business Insider, let me see if I can pull up this article. According to Business Insider, the United States ranks high in financial wealth. Americans earn a median income of $59,000. According to what was this website? It's taking forever to load right now. According to the Fair Observer, historic tensions between expansionism and isolationism continue to America's role in the world. The United States of America is the most powerful country in human history, responsible for nearly 40% of the world's military spending. America's era of global dominance has coincided with historically unprecedented levels of prosperity and peace. Taking shape in its first sweep across the continent, American expansionism was founded in bloodshed and slaughter of the indigenous population, yet its role in the world was under intense debate following the Civil War. With the dawn of the Industrial Revolution saw power consolidated by the federal government, removing the anti-imperialist checks to the expansion of U.S. influence abroad. This one's according to Daily Caller. The United States is well on its way to become a net explorer of natural gas for the first time in decades after breaking the annual record for oil production, according to the latest government data. The United States Energy Information Administration, also known as the EIA, expects the United States to become a net natural gas exporter once they've compiled all the data for 2017. So go ahead. What would you like to say on this issue? I've been rambling on.
Fine. Okay. You say if I trace back to the past, which you say that United States has been a superpower or a global strong economy, I don't think so, and I totally disagree with the point because if I go back to the past in history, I can say China and India combined when China and India combined together in the previous age, not at present, talking about the years before, then their total GDP rated was approximately equal to 59.6%. I'm talking about the first century when India was said to be the bird of gold and India and China both worked together for a globalized economy. Then China had a GDP of 26.2% and India had a GDP of 32.9%. Total it amounted to 59.6%. But when our country was dominated by the British, at that point our country was looted. All the wealth of our country was exploited by the United Kingdom, and hence there was a rise in the economy of UK, I mean in Britain, and there was downfall of the economy of India. And gradually, due to many wars or due to many incidents, even China's economy also fell down. Ultimately, the thing is that India and China, their economy went down. So at the time, the economy of US, economy of Britain, it went higher. But at present time, when India is totally independent, when China is completely independent, their economy is now growing higher and higher. It's not equivalent to the US or UK, but the economy is growing higher. So from the statistical data that I have presented, which was recently published by a particular book, I've forgotten in the book, it states that when the countries like India and China were under bondages, then the economy met our downfall. But when they are independent and are working hand to hand, the economy can still raise that of US and China, US and UK. Because in the previous years, UK or US or other nations were not that much economically strong. Only after India was dominated by the Britishers and only after 1960, from that particular 1947, only after 1757 when India was completely taken up by the Britishers, only from that time, those particular countries of the Europe or of that of North and South America, then only from that point only the economy was raised up. But at present time, what is the condition or what is the situation is that uh, if I talk about, I'm not talking about India. I don't want to talk about India, but I'm talking about China. You see, China is not a democratic country. It is a country that flows monarchy. So whenever China tries to implement any scheme if data is to implement, they plan it for 25 or to 26 years. I'm just saying a minimum range. That whenever they try to implement any act, they consider or they think for 25 or 26 in the future years. But India or you can talk about America or our other countries, which are completely democratic and their presidency has a tenure of only 5 years. So they end up only with a 5 year plan.
Okay.
Whenever a new government comes to power, the government will plan probably for a future years, but we cannot depend whether that government will be there or not. It may exist within 1 2 days or within 1 2 years. So they plan only for only a minimum rate of 5 to 6 years. But there of China, they plan for 25 to 26 years. So we can say the country which GDP was एकदम nullified. The country which GDP was nullified in the previous years in 1990s, you can see the condition in China now. It is the second most superpower here. Only the point is that China has not implemented their influence on other nations, and US has been influencing in other nations. So to say, I just want to say here that US has got the designation of superpower because it interferes in each and every country's political or economical matter. That means it tries to maintain its influence of all over all the countries of the world. Whereas in case of China, China doesn't want to do that. It wants to strengthen its own economy. It wants to strengthen its own country by some way or the other. It doesn't matter to them whether they're cheating other countries or it doesn't matter to them. But thing is that they want to do it for themselves and only by themselves. Whereas in case of America or other countries, they try to implement the influence of the other countries and tries to become the leader of the world. That's what. Back to you.
Okay. Wow. A lot of information to take in. Yeah, trade deficits have a lot to do with economies and stuff like that. I think it was North Korea falls into a 1.6 billion dollar trade deficit with China, according to Business Insider. But more about those EIAs that I was talking about earlier, the U.S. Energy Information Administration. They expect that the United States to have the third largest gas liquefaction capacity in the world by the end of 2019. That's behind Qatar and Australia, assuming all such projects underway are finished on time. According to, I haven't read this article. This was on Breitbart. The United States is currently the world's largest producer of natural gas and the world's third largest producer of oil. If the vast oil resources in the United States were allowed to be developed with appropriate incentives for development, the United States could be the world's largest oil producer. With additional oil supplies from Canada, the United States could almost become independent of overseas oil. Given that the United States will need oil and natural gas for the foreseeable future, why not allow the industry to make this forecast a reality? Now back to you.
Well, you see, not I was just citing an example over here that you see. Actually, it depends. What is actually superpower? The superpower is such a country which has got a completely strengthened economy as well as that of people support, as well as that of it has got a completely strengthened military base, diplomatic relations, political relations, internal relations. Means each and every side it must be strengthened. That is what we call a superpower. Now, if I talk about North Korea is a democratic country. So accordingly, it should also have been a superpower. But it is not a superpower. It is one of the poorest nations in the world. Why? Because the leader of North Korea is focusing on nuclear power. He's focusing on only on defense. and not on the economic conditions. That is the weak point of North Korea of not becoming a superpower. But if I talk about China, China is not only concerned about military base, nor it is concerned about attacking other nations. It is concerned about its own economic power. It is concerned about how it can rise. It is not concerned about the
Yeah.
democracy.
Yeah.
It is not concerned about democracy. It is only concerned about
North
its
Korea
country.
also is a totalitarian communist country with a GDP level of $12.38 billion. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do agree that at present the GDP of America is higher, but the second position is occupied by China. So we can't predict because when we do a race, we can see someone running in front of us. But probably at the middle of the race, even we can overcome that particular first position. So the thing is in that way. At present, the US is running at a very high speed. It is going in the first track. Probably tomorrow or thereafter tomorrow, at a particular time, China may overcome you. So we can predict that. Anyway, whatsoever, from the military power or from the military base, if I try to say, US has got a good, US has got a very good strengthened military power. Even China is also not less than US. But at present, I can see innovations done by China. China has been involved in taking many innovations for its military and defense forces. And other than that, if I talk about other export and imports done by China, if you just do analysis of all the exports or imports done by this particular China, China exports a lot, even it imports a lot. So today, China is the leading power in this particular trade power. In this particular trade relation, China is leading it all. And there are many schemes, there are many issues which China is trying to overcome, which China is trying to take. It is going to build or it is going to start a work on the largest collider in the future years.
Okay.
Even even all the technologies that we have at present is in China. We cannot imagine about plastic rice or plastic like food items, but it is prevailing in China. So if you try to analyze from each and every point, you can see China is not any backward. Every point, every time, China has tried to overcome all circumstances and try to establish itself as a globally strengthened and powerful nation.
Yeah. Well, China needs to get better on their trade, I believe. What was it? The China, United States, what was it? We have it's like a $130 billion trade deficit with between the United States and China. But China does do a lot of exports, especially to North Korea. Go ahead. I was going to read a couple more articles, but I wanted you to go ahead.
Okay. China does a lot of export. That's also one of the important points. And the point is that for a particular country to be a superpower, it requires something other than that of economy. It requires something other than the economy. Actually, you see, America is a democratic country. I just want to raise this point again. That America is a democratic country. It completely depends upon the people. Democracy is always run by the people. Today, the president of the United States, Trump, has been accepted by many people, whereas many people criticize him. So it is all the matter of politics. Every time a political game, it rolls the air of each and every democratic country. But in case of China, China is completely a non-democratic country with a monarchical government.
Yes.
So whatever the government says, the other people have to follow it. Whatever the government says, the people have to do it. So there is no question of protesting against. So when there has been no question of protesting against, there cannot be any blunders, there cannot be any hindrance in the ways of implementing a government scheme.
Well,
So
China,
all the schemes for the government are always for the development of the country, and it has been proved. So I feel that actually it's my opinion that as China is not a democratic country; it's a monarchical country, which doesn't follow or which doesn't listen to what the people is saying here and there. So I think only for that reason, probably China can overcome US.
Okay. Well, China has way more problems than the United States. For one thing, we talk about this whole fear porn with global warming, the freaking these freaking people. Anyways, the real problem isn't there's not as much pollution, nearly as much pollution as there is in the U.S. as there is in China. China has a big problem with pollution, and they have according to Listverse, as other nations had delays in starting production due to environmental restraints and regulations, China built factories without concern for the long-term environmental consequences. The pollution in the air is the equivalent of smoking 40 cigarettes. They have an overpopulation problem. As of September of 2017, the population stands at over 1 billion people. This places an enormous strain on natural resources, particularly with living standards that rise, and thus demand resources increases. There's many other factors, wage increases, regional tensions, their flawed military reform. The military issues, they've invested heavily in their military and it's growing. They are still behind, though, as far as the most powerful militaries in the world in their terms of equipment and especially training. It takes a great deal of money to equip and train a military of China's size, and it's not even close to the budget of America.
Well, you see, I don't think that population can be a hindrance to a country's development.
Okay.
If can you hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay. So I don't think population can be a hindrance to a country's development. Because in case population turns to be a human resource, it is beneficial for a nation instead of being a curse to it. I'll take the example of Japan. It has got no natural resources, but it completely depends upon human resources. So if today China has got the world's largest population, still there is a literacy rate which is very high. So if the people of China can utilize it as a human resource, then I think China can obviously overcome US and it can become the next superpower. So I don't think that by saying the population of China is more and more, we cannot say that it will never be the superpower. Because population cannot be a hindrance if it is utilized in a very, very perfect way. And one more point I have to say here, America spends a lot and lot of military powers. You talk about Afghanistan, you talk about Iraq, you talk about Iran. Everywhere there is the influence of America's military power over there. So it has been spending, I think, so uselessly a lot of money on military. So which China doesn't do. I have not seen any country at present where China's military is in power. So that is also one of the important points which I like to mention. That is also a point. Probably today America is capable of spending a lot on military. Well, tomorrow they may not be. But China, it is at a perfect rate. It is going on a steady rate, so it doesn't require to do so. So I think so it can overcome all the circumstances which will come in this way, and obviously it can strengthen its military base more and more.
Well, China has had some problems economically in the past, but the real contention I have is I think that they're really good with they in the past have been so with trade, but I just don't believe that they are a superpower anymore. There's there's a lot to think about, but there's, like I said, there's more military power, better economy in America, all this stuff, and I just don't think that China is going to replace the U.S. as the world superpower. Let's see. China has embraced globalization not only in its proposed trade deals, but like the anticipated regional comprehensive economic partnership, but through the One Belt, One Road policy, which seeks to build up infrastructure in Asia and elsewhere. These policies promote China's trade and economic prowess, and act as a means to spread China's soft power, according to Forbes. So it's not going to happen. Even though China has been in the spotlight for years, first as the factory of the world, then as the bridge builder of the world, its capacity for economic reform is in question. So it's on the downhill for economically, and its financial sector remains far less developed than that of the Western world. Growth is slowing, and economic inefficiencies abound as reform of the services sector has been monumentally slow. In addition, the spread of soft power alone does not guarantee the rise to superpower status. For one, we still have yet to witness the long-term viability of China's recent economic partnerships, and two, the presence of soft power abroad without strong domestic institutions threatens to undermine China's global presence. I will pass the mic to you.
Well, okay, I just want to ask you a question over here in the middle that just say me one of the reasons why you think that country of the China, why do you think that China cannot become the superpower, or why it cannot overcome US?
I think it's mostly culturally and socially, or not. Sorry, not socially, culturally and economically. So I think economically speaking, because we just saw back in what was it? The stock market boomed up in late 2000, in mid to late 2017. We've seen record stock market numbers. There's unemployment rate is down at 4% right now, and we're not as overpopulated as China, and the pollution problem is not nearly as bad as China. I don't believe in the whole global warming thing, but I do think that pollution is a thing that needs to be dealt with. But China is not going to stop polluting. That's the problem. So they need to. They are not as good environmentally as America is. So there's that aspect of it too. So it's economically, culturally, and environmentally. China is not as diverse as the United States.
Well, you see, as for me, I do agree that at present and till today, US has been a superpower, and it can remain if it goes the same way it's going at present. But I think US to continue its designation as superpower, it has to take up some other schemes. I mean, it requires the involvement of each and every person, of each and every citizen of America to make US superpower till the upcoming years.
Yeah.
Because in China, we can see is that China, you see, it is very interesting to note that China was a country which has got a good GDP rate at a previous historical backwards. I mean, years back. In the middle, its GDP rate was completely low, and it was completely up to 0%. But again, it rose up. Again, after it rose up, and its military, defense, economy, each and everyone were so powerful. So that country who can stand up to a GDP rate of amounting to 50% of the world economy from 0%. It has raised up till 26 to 27% to 50% from 0%. So obviously, it can raise it to such an extent that it can overcome US.
Okay.
And the point I just want to conclude by saying one point that if at present I feel like that if China and India, because I'm not saying that India has got not a good GDP rate, or India cannot have the good GDP rate. No, because in the other years, in the previous years, when India was to be said as the bird of gold, it had a GDP rate which amounted to 50% of the world's total economy. So if India and China can work hand to hand and can work in a friendship term, work in good relationship, then probably India and China both can overcome US and become the world superpower. So it all matters about how the schemes are being taken, how many innovations you make. It's not only matter about economy, it's not only matter of defense, but it matters about innovation. It matters about innovation, how much innovation we can perform in a country. For being a superpower, we require first of all political powers. We require political powers. We require the powers which can influence other nations as well, and we require good international relationship. And moreover, that we require it. What we require a good international relationship. So all these things, if we can maintain, I think so. Obviously, China can overcome US in the upcoming years. That's all.
Okay. According to U.S. News, in the last decade, the notion of China becoming the world's next superpower has become often an ID 6 for many, compared to the so-called other BRICS. Stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China. Shines like the moon. So it kind of does have some good things going for it, like infrastructure, but politically, the United States has just economically, it's going places economically. So, and I keep repeating myself, so I wanted to conclude the debate. Was there any final thoughts that you wanted to say? Because I'm repeating myself. Is there anything you want to say?
No, I have concluded.
All right.